Hey Kyle, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I love the new Garbage record. Strange Little Birds is it's a complete triumph for you guys, which is so exciting to see for any band who's been around this long. I know it's not the easiest thing to continue to put out amazing music, and it looks like it's exactly what you guys have done again.
You're making me feel really good this early in the morning. I think it's a good record. I think we all know it's a good record, actually, and I guess you're right, that's really rare, at any point in your career, but to know it 21 years in does seem like a real gift, at the risk of sounding really daft.
Not at all. You should be proud of what you've done. It was the last album, as the story goes now, that brought you guys back together after a little bit of a hiatus. And it seems like this is the album that really makes it real, though. Like, I see a lot of those bands who sort of reunites for whatever reason, and they do the one-off record, and then, they disappear again. But to follow it up, does it feel like now this is really real again, that it's still garbage? Or maybe it always felt like that for you, that it never went away?
Yeah, to be honest, we never even split up. I've really no idea entirely where that sort of description has come from, because we never said we were, splitting up, or that there was any real problems between us per se. But we definitely took hiatus, and just life took hold, and we ended up really being away for much longer than we ever intended to. We always felt like we were together, and we've always felt real. It's funny because the accusation of us not being real has followed us throughout our entire career, to the point where I think we're beginning to like it.
Well, I hope I'm not, accusing you of anything right there. It is a complete perception.
Sure, I stand corrected, because that's a fair way of putting it. I guess it's a lazy description I'm using there, but... yeah, we've been perceived as probably the best idea.
Well, no, it's easy, for any band, again, once you have a hit, to be trapped in an era, and you guys were in danger of that, as any band would be. And again, even if it was just a hiatus or a break, coming back and doing the last record and it being good, and then putting out Strange Little Birds and it being great, it seems like that's the ticket to escaping, I'm a band from the 90s, for whatever stamp that, gets put on you.
Sure. You're absolutely right. We are described always now as a 90s band. And in some ways, it does feel somewhat reductive, But at the same time, we're lucky in that it's such a great era to be associated with, that I think we just try and not to take heed of it too much. We don't take it to heart too much. People will forever label things, and we've been labeled, and that's life, and we just have to get on with it. But we feel that we've still got something to say as a band, and so we just try and not really pay much attention to what other people have to say with regards to the kind of band that we are.
Of course, it is interesting that you've had more albums out of the 90s than you did in the 90s, so for what that's
fair. That's very fair. You're setting me straight this morning, I have to say.
Happy to help in any way, Shirley.
Yeah, well, it is helpful. You're absolutely right. That's totally fair, but God knows I don't know if I'll be able to live long enough to do another... I suppose, no, in the 90s we did 2 records in the 90s, so we've already done 2 in the... 2000s. So no, we've done 4 in the 2000s.
That's right.
What we're talking about here.
Yeah. So keep it up.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Probably, as long as I don't get hit by a bus.
Don't do that. Well, so this record, and I do want to concentrate on Strange Little Birds, because it's pulled off this really amazing trick. I would call this, and I think you've said it as much too, is it's an album that's sort of a reflection of our time. And I sort of guess that means worldly issues. But it also sounds like an album that's fighting as much for relationship as it is humanity, and often with those lines blurring. It's kind of an impressive example of the parallels of the two, magnified and wide out at the same time. And I don't know if that was your intention, but it's pulled off masterfully, if so.
Well, A, thank you. B, I think there's always a duality in us when we write. I think that's always been something we've tried to do, is make sure that things can be universal whilst also really personal. I think that's when writing's at its best, when you're able to pull that off. And I think we did manage to touch on something on this record that really hangs together, particularly after we sequenced the record. I think we realised, because of the way we had selected the songs and then sequenced them, it sort of tells a really vague story in a way, and yet manages to be universal and deeply personal.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to listen to a song like If I Lost You and Even Though Our Love Is Doomed and not think that you are writing specifically for someone or for at least a moment in your life. And I don't know if that's true or not, but, complete, honest songs is how they come across.
Well, certainly If I Lost You is probably the most personal I've ever gotten on record, for sure, because it's really... It feels uncomfortable for me to sing that song, so I know that that's me being like about as truthful as it gets, and I really wanted to try and do that with this record, is go to the places that I was deliberately avoiding for one reason or another, to challenge myself as a writer. I definitely want to grow and, get better at what I do. I want to push myself every record, and so I always sort of set myself little goals, and that was definitely one of them.
With the other side of the record, I mean, I wouldn't call it a political record because there's nothing overtly political on it, but at the same time, I mean, you from, again, perception, it seems like you're taking the darkness of everything that's happening in the world right now and saying, hey, look at this. I mean, did you go into it wanting to write something that did hit on, I'm going to use the word again, political side of things?
Certainly we didn't do that deliberately, and never have been interested per se in being a political band with a large P, but I think at this point in our lives we're becoming increasingly anxious that our culture seems hell-bent on ignoring the truth, really, whatever that truth may be, but I guess is different for every individual, but certainly for us in Garbage, we feel that world leaders are just ignoring what we see as the truth, which is that we're in real jeopardy, I think, and the leaders are too interested in being popular, too interested in remaining in power, and as a result, not really doing their job. Because sometimes, unfortunately, and any mother or father will tell you the same thing, sometimes when you have to lead your family, as it were, it's not always the popular choice that you have to insist that your brood follow. Sometimes you have to make really unpopular choices and insist that people do things that they don't necessarily want to do all the time. As human beings, we always want to do the easiest thing and the thing that feels the best, and that's not always the most favourable way forward, I don't think. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about anything to know what the solutions to anything are, but I think we as a band feel somewhat alarmed about the way we're all headed, and we just wanted to put that on record in as sort of simple a fashion as we could.
I mean, I think the most powerful line on this entire record is, I'm really getting desperate for revolution.
To me, it's to every be careful what it is you break. Every fragile thing, can't be fixed. To me, that is the most powerful line on the record. In a way, I think we are becoming very careless as a race, and I don't know. I feel panicked a lot of the time because everything seems so out of control, and everything's become so disrespectful and intolerant and unkind and ungenerous, and it breaks my heart because I feel like we're all better than that, but we seem to be really tending towards our worst selves rather than our best selves most of the time.
Yeah, and excuse me if I'm taking another line out of context, but when I had to empty and hear you say, I get tired of trying, like I relate to that in the context that we're talking about right now, because I too am passionate about a lot of the things you're saying here, and it just gets so overwhelming sometimes. It's like, maybe if I just live in my own bubble and take care of myself and the people around me, the act or think globally, act locally sort of mantra, because
absolutely. I think everybody's beginning to feel like that, where they feel powerless. I think so many of us feel so powerless because everything seems so much bigger than us, and we do tend to remain in our bubbles and create our own reality via our telephones, and justify any stance that we may hold by finding it on the internet. And I don't know, I think it can get very bewildering and disorientating, and who knows? I think that's why we all gravitate towards happy music all the time. We don't really want to look into the shadows anymore. It seems too scary.
But you're right. I mean, it's why we turn to music. It's why we find the relations within those lyrics, and and maybe that's why I've fallen so hard for your album too. I mean, it sounds great. It's a great record, on the surface, but it's onion skinned, as they say. I can keep peeling back those layers and find something new in this, which is.
Oh, I love that. That's a lovely description. Yeah. I mean, that's what we certainly hope to do, and we do think we made a sort of beautiful record, which is sort of the records that we love to listen to, that do work on a lot of different levels, depending on how you're feeling. And the one thing I think we really managed to do on this record, which I think we've probably never managed to do before, is capture the sound of a human, a heart beating. Like, you can really feel that it's a human record made by humans rather than the machines. When we hear a lot of pop music nowadays, you can really hear the machine behind most of the artists, unless they're exceptionally brilliant, But on our record, you definitely feel it. There's a pulse, and that's really hard to achieve on a record at the best of times,
Is it easy for you guys now, or do you still, I mean, just from knowing people for so long, I feel like you would know each other's tricks and how to get to the end result, or do you find yourself that you still really have to work at finding the magic that you're talking about?
It's funny, it's a bit of both, because I do feel that it's always hard to find magic. That's always what you're mining for, all of us together. Every day we go into the studio and we hope to find that magic, and somehow or other on this record we did it. And we didn't know we had until we sequenced the record, and then we all realized, wow, this is something special for us. But so it's always a challenge, but it's also, the pursuit becomes easier because you do trust each other more, and you know each other's toolbox, which in itself is great. Like, nowadays we really know who to toss the opportunity to when we're in the studio. It's like there's just moments when okay, we need to go to Duke or Steve for this, or Butch or Shirley. Each member has something that they have that the others don't have, and so we work very well together as a team, and we rely on each other, and we share a real sensibility, which does make things easier after a while.
Well, it shows. I mean, like I said, the whole thing, I know I've given you a dozen compliments on this, but one more can't hurt.
It never hurts, right?
Strange Little Birds, one of your strongest records, and I'm just so happy that you guys are still out there and still having fun with this and still creating. I can't imagine that you could not otherwise create, because it seems, so part of everything, I guess. But thank you so much, Shirley. It was really great talking to you today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you too. Have a good rest of your day.
Don't get hit by a bus.
Thank you. I'll try not to. Bye.
All right, bye.